Well, welcome! As you can tell, Tuesday Tips Live is a bit of a special one today because we are with two reasons. One, it's a scratch special, but two, Steve's here.
Hello.
Which is awesome. Good to have you here, Steve.
Mate.
We are live across YouTube, Facebook and the Global DJ Network. If you're not a member of the Global DJ Network, you should be. It's the best networking group for DJs. So if you want to make a note of how to join that, you just hit message in our Facebook page and send the word join. Hit message, send the word join. Can't be easier than that. And you will be admitted to our VIP area where you get proper treatment from the staff, and you're not just one of hundreds of comments. It's awesome in there. Anyway, welcome. It's Tuesday Tips Live with Steve Canueto and with me.
Yeah.
Hi.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm alright, yeah.
Good to be here. Nice to make a little trip down to HQ.
Yep. If you don't know who the hell we are behind Rock the Dance Floor, the book on how to DJ, and we are also behind a really exciting scratch training course, which we're going to tell you about today, but we're going to kind of like spend most of our time today talking through the big mistakes people make when they're scratching, right?
Yeah.
Steve's a tutor of the course. Steve's been scratching ever since he was a teenager.
Yeah.
On turntables he found in antique shops and all that kind of thing. So he knows his stuff, and he's taught a few thousand people over the years. So he's got some really interesting things to share with you. As always, if you enjoy this, please hit the share button. If you are watching this on the replay, it's probably because you weren't subscribed, you didn't click notify me, you didn't click show these posts first, and you didn't click that little bell. Do all that stuff because it's much more fun live. We always mess up. Something goes wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, something went wrong immediately right at the beginning.
Did it? Well,
only the very keen eye would have spotted it.
Yeah,
I was scratching without the deck playing.
Ah, nice. I like it. Well, anyway, so yeah, if you're not a subscriber, subscribe. These are more fun live. And if you're watching on YouTube and thinking, I want a 5-minute tips video, this is not it, folks. This is a recording of a live show. We're going to go and get comments from the audience. We're going to do all kinds of stuff which can only be done in this environment. It's great to watch the replay, so welcome if you are. It's even better to catch these things live. All right then. All that stuff dealt with, let's now move on to what we're here for, which is the 5 things that if you're learning to scratch, you're probably doing wrong.
Yep.
If you learn nothing else from this video, make a little note of all 5 and go away and just think about them next time you power your decks up, and you'll gain an awful lot from it.
It's important to point out here, this is if you're, these are when you try and teach yourself to scratch, which I think everybody has had a go at, right? You think, that looks cool, I want to learn how to do that. You watch some people doing it. You have a go at trying to teach yourself by usually watching the experts and start to think, okay, I'm gonna give this a go, and it doesn't sound right. It goes badly, and there are reasons why that's happening that you don't know, and that's what we're going to help you with here.
Right, so number 1, the first reason is
don't copy what you think you're seeing.
Don't mimic without understanding. So what do we mean by don't copy what you think you're seeing? I think the best way to illustrate this is to use a clip, right? Yeah. So we're not playing this clip to poke fun at anyone. Frankly, anyone who has a go at scratching is brilliant in our book. Well done for having a go. But the problem is, if you're just trying to mimic what you think you're seeing, you're never going to get it. And this little clip we've got for you here will give you the idea of it more than we can do by talking. So just
it's about 30 or 40 seconds. Stick with it, and we'll explain it afterwards.
Okay, so have a look at this. Okay, so just to point out, that was not him, not even me. It was just a clip that we found on the internet a while back that kind of illustrates this point. It wasn't very good, was it? It sounded pretty awful. No. What was going on there, Steve?
So the interesting thing about that is that this guy he's basically trying to learn to do some scratching on a Tractor Control S4, practicing it, and for those who know about scratching, his hand movements, his jog wheel hand movements and his fader hand movements are actually very good. So he's basically watching people doing stuff and he's mimicking the movements, but the sounds are all wrong. So he's actually got no control over the sounds or where they are. And actually he's just doing these movements for the sake of mimicking and nothing else. He's got no understanding actually of what he's doing or what sound he's trying to replicate. And also, he may not actually even really be listening very clearly to what he's doing. But some of the things he was doing were quite, I don't know if you can cut to the overhead camera here, like when he was using 2 hands on one jog wheel. He was doing what's called a tear scratch, which I'm going to talk to you about in a bit, which has sort of like, hand movements like this. His movements were very good. He's obviously studied it, but he has not got a foundation grounding in the basics of scratching, which means that he's just not going to be able to make a sound anything like what he's trying to emulate when he does those actions.
A good analogy here would be language. If you've ever tried to learn a foreign language and you literally listen to it for the first time and you think, it's just all, I don't understand where the words start and end. I don't understand where the sentences start and end. I literally don't understand anything about this language. Yeah, maybe you've had that feeling. If you get to the point where you can open your mouth and do a good version of their accent, right, but you don't actually know the language, that's kind of what we were watching then. That's what that was like. In order to get to the point where you at least can tell the words apart and you know what language it is you're listening to, you need a bit of grounding. No, you won't be able to talk it very well, but you'll at least have a bit of a grounding and you'll know that that's a sentence, that's a word, that's, So you need to get to that point with scratching.
Yeah.
The very, very basics, understanding actually what's going on in order to know what you don't know really, in order to be able to decipher what you're seeing, even if you can't do it yet.
Yeah.
And if not, what we just saw is an example of what can happen. So mistake number 1 is just that.
Yeah, don't try and mimic what you think you're seeing. And number 2 is don't blame the gear.
By the way, lots of you commenting. I can see that. We'll get to your comments at the end of number 2. Then we'll carry on through the 5 that we've got. But yeah, number 2, don't blame your gear.
Now that guy may have thought that he may have had a different controller the day before, and he just bought the Tractor Control S4 and thought, right, this is going to be it now. I'm going to be able to do it. And it sounds just the same as the racket he was making on the other controller.
Now, he could have been looking at this controller
yeah.
on a YouTube video or something and thinking, oh, if only I had that controller with those big jog wheels, it might be a bit easier. That's why I'm not doing it properly. It's a big, big mistake to blame your gear, right? Why?
Yeah.
Why is it a big mistake?
Because if you can scratch, or DJs that can scratch on pretty much any gear. So it's actually a skill that is transferable. Yes, different gear has a slightly different feel. Maybe like as Phil says, the jog wheel sizes, or you can get sort of latency. The feel of like the tightness of the scratch sound can feel different on older gear. But for DJs that can scratch, they can rock up on any gear and be able to do it. All right, and even the kind of most entry level gear that there is out there at the moment is totally capable of being able to perform the most advanced scratch techniques on. And actually we've got a video to demonstrate that. A friend of Digital DJ Tips, Jon Joni, he made a video scratching on the DDJ 200. He's pretty famous for breaking down Jazzy Jeff's Peter Piper routine. And of course, as soon as he got his hands on the DDJ 200, which is how much to buy?
$150, something like that, yeah.
He had a go at it and was able to perform that routine on that gear just as easily as he could on anything else. So let's have a quick look at him doing that, a little part of it. Right, so
phone, DJing on a phone. Did you notice that?
Yeah, tiny jog wheels, DJing on a phone, little controller, short crossfader, and totally able to do it. And it's because he's able to do it. So,
and the trouble is, in the old days, you had record decks and that was it. You had a pair of record decks. So there was none of this, oh, is it the gear? Because everyone had the same gear, right? And so there was always this issue of, and even if it is the gear, I can't afford to replace it. What would I replace it with? It was hard to find DJ gear. It wasn't like now where there's so much stuff out there. So it's very easy to think, oh, if only I swapped that for that, it would be better. But it wouldn't be better. It's anyone who can scratch can do it on anything. But like driving a car. Once you can drive a car, hey, guess what? Get into anything and you can drive it in just a couple of minutes, right?
Yeah.
Bit of looking around and you're there.
I mean, there were periods of innovation where, different crossfader settings were coming in, and so there was a sort of a valid reason for buying a different bit of gear because there was an improvement in performance. But now everything that comes out has got a scratch setting on crossfaders. It's got very tight integration with the sound and the jog wheels. You just have everything.
The truth is, you've got to get very good for the gear to start being your number one problem.
Yeah.
Right, loads and loads of comments coming in. So I just want to nip over here, Steve, and say hello to a few people. chuck some comments up on the screen. Mario Luna over on Facebook is...
You want to change your actual screen?
Yeah, why not change the screen? Yeah, that'd be good.
Cool.
There we go. Mario Luna on Facebook. We've got a nice new Facebook logo here. That's since earlier today, believe it or not. It says, hello, DJT family. Loads of you saying hello. Hi to Antweezy and Juanmi, Manico, Omar, who's in Caraco. Is that how you pronounce it? But anyway, you're in somewhere glamorous. It's good to see. Dominic says hi, Phil and Steve. Right, I'm going to look for some questions about scratching here rather than just hello. So hello to everyone, Raymond and Maximus and Michael and all you guys saying hello there. So DJ Dash says, we've got to read this one out. Layineth the smacketh down on that controller down.
Okay.
So there we go. Can you talk box and DJ at the same time? I don't know what talk box means, but yeah, I'm sure he can. I struggle to talk and do anything at the same time. To be honest, my wife won't even let me drive the car and talk at the same time. So don't talk to me about doing things simultaneously. So Mark says Joey from Friends trying to speak French. That is a good example for anyone who remembers Joey from Friends. Apparently, Friends is the most watched thing on Netflix now. All the stuff on Netflix. Friends is the most watched thing.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Which is free on pretty much every other channel as well.
Well, that's true, yeah. So Pato says some DJ gear does have latency and different fields, etc. And that's what you were saying, isn't it, Steve? That's
but if you can scratch, you can make an adjustment for that. You know, when you get on that gear, initially it will sound a little bit different, it will feel different, but you can make some minute adjustments and you can basically hack around that.
And Mark actually is saying the same thing over on our Facebook channel. Over time, you learn how to work with your latency.
Yeah.
So, so that that is the truth. You learn to work around the things that are holding you back. Can you please send me the link for the scratch course? Says Wayne. Patience Jedi, we will let you know all this stuff later on. And one of the reasons we upgrade mixer parts like crossfaders, we're not saying that the cheapest gear is the best thing to scratch on. All we're saying is don't let it hold you back and don't let yourself think the reason you're not getting it is your gear.
And you can learn on it, that's the point.
Yes.
You can learn on entry-level gear.
I don't like dead platters, says Richard. It just feels weird being an old vinyl dude. This is the motorised versus still, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a valid point. But you can scratch on any of them.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a valid point, Richard, especially if you come from vinyl. What controller are you guys using, says Eddie? Steve, tell him.
So this is the Pioneer DDJ 1000 SRT, which is the Serato version of the DDJ 1000. And very nice it is too.
Yeah, nice controller. All right then, is there a good exercise that you can suggest for beginners? We're going to get onto that in a little while, James, so thank you for that. You are awesome, guys. Says Hesham. Shall we just go home now? I think we're not going to better that, are we?
Cool.
And does it matter what side of the jog you scratch on? Says Kelvin. Do you want to tell Kelvin?
Yeah. So if you can give me an overhead camera shot.
I can give you an overhead camera, Steve.
So we just get a scratch sound here. This, you need to have your hand on this side of the jog wheel. So it's on the left-hand side of the jog wheel as you're looking at it. So at about the kind of 7 to 8 to 9 o'clock position if it was a clock face. That is also the same if you're on this deck, and this is where people go wrong, is like they get a bit confused that on the other deck maybe they need to be on the other side. Let me just explain why. When you're moving your hand forward, the sound moves forward, and when you pull it back, it moves back. So forward for the sound, back for the sound. If I put my hand on the other side of the deck, that's reversed. When I move it forward, it's going backwards, and when I pull it backwards, it's going forwards, which is wrong. Basically, you need to be on the left-hand side of the jog wheel.
Okay, so that kind of makes sense there because it's just kind of the way you're hearing it.
Yep.
So loads and loads of other comments, and we want to move on because we've got lots more to cover. So keep those comments and questions coming in. We will help you with them as we move through. But now we're moving on to number 3. So if you're just joining us, we are counting, Steve and myself are counting through 5 things that people get wrong when they learn to scratch.
Yep.
We've already covered mimicking what you hear without really understanding it, and blaming your gear for it not working.
Yeah.
What is the third thing we're going to look at, Steve?
Well, the third thing is that our unfortunate contributor at the beginning had also made this mistake, among many others, which was using terrible sounds or bad sounds. There are really, really famous scratch sounds out there that some would argue that they're overused, but they are popular for a reason, which is that they sound good. They are identifiable as scratch sounds by audiences, so people kind of know that you're scratching. And also, if you use the same sounds that the pros are using, even if you are trying to replicate what they do, you can actually benchmark yourself against them because you're using the same sound, right? So it's really important that you get those kind of classic scratch sounds, and I can demo a few of them here for you. Here, this is the famous R sound, is what it's called, and there's a few more here. This is the fresh sound, and we've got another famous one here. Oh yeah! Oh yeah! And I've actually got loads on here.
I mean, people are going to know those, aren't they, immediately?
Those two are the most famous ones.
Guys and girls. Steve, tell him.
Yep. So if you haven't got these scratch sounds, we will give them to you for free in our scratch pack. So you just need to put this URL in your browser, djtips.co/scratch.
The team will post it underneath, so you don't have to scribble it down now. It'll be it'll be underneath or in the description.
And basically, you'll come to a page, pop your email address in there, and we'll send you the scratch pack, which has got some beats and all the most famous scratch sounds. And also a get started in controller scratching training PDF as well.
So for those of you saying, how do I get started? What do I do first? Well, there is an answer to that as well.
Cool.
So that is the place to go to get your scratch sounds. Are we having fun, people? Are we enjoying ourselves? Let us know in the comments. But meanwhile, we're going to move on to the fourth reason. I'm trying to get my hands on a white background there so you can see them. The fourth thing that people tend to mess up when they are learning to scratch. So what's this, Steve?
So this kind of goes hand in hand with incorrectly trying to mimic what you see people doing, which is that you manage. So let's say you got a controller, you get a famous scratch sound, and you're right, I'm going to do scratching like I see people do it. You get both hands on the controller, one on a jog wheel, one on the fader, start flailing around like you see people doing, moving the hand and the fader at the same time, and the sound that comes out is nothing like you were trying to recreate. And you just think, well, hang on a minute, that looks to me like what they're doing. But if you are still learning, and I would guess as well that you're also trying to do a scratch technique which is way too advanced for where you should be.
Yeah, we're going to move on to that in a bit, but even on the very basic ones.
Yeah. The way that I teach scratching is by teaching the two hands separately. I mean, first of all, it's really, really important to know which hand you should be using on the jog wheel and which one on the crossfader. We have a very simple test for this, which is that if you just very quickly do an impersonation of a DJ scratching, what do? Right, so one hand goes down, the other one always seems to go to the headphones for some reason, even though scratch DJs don't do that. But one hand will naturally move towards the jog wheel and do the scratching action, right? So that's probably the one that you should start with if you haven't made the decision.
And being left-handed, that's maybe, it doesn't really matter left or right. Some people find the crossfader the dominant hand, and some people find but it's whichever one you...
Yeah, I'm right-handed and I use my right hand on the crossfader because I found that was more intricate.
So it's not you not trying to use both hands together. That is the big mistake people do. They just think, all right, I'm going to do this, as Steve was saying, and both hands go in.
Yeah.
And it's not like that. The movements aren't like that. They're not done simultaneously. Just like if you're changing on a manual shift car, you don't put the clutch in and move the gear lever at the same time, right? You have to put the clutch in first, then the gear, and then there's a sequence, right?
That's a really perfect
or this one
explanation.
This is another one. You need to think about the two things separately and then combine them once you've worked it out.
So I'll give you an example. The cut scratch is this. Okay, so it's a scratch where we're only hearing the forward stroke, we're cutting out the reverse stroke, and I'm cutting it out by switching the fader off. What that is, on the jog wheel, is a baby scratch. Okay, so that's what you'd learn first, and there's no fader hand going on here. I'm not touching the fader at all, the fader's just open. I'm just learning a baby scratch. Then separately what we do, we actually do this by setting a very, very short loop on the sound, which I'll have a crack at doing. 1 second, we've got the technology for this, I'm sure.
Oh, it's a Serato weird controller, this one, Steve. You have to hold down the shift button to halve it. It's something I really slagged off on the review, actually. I think
get my DJ lesson now.
There you go. Is that enough? Is that okay for you?
Yeah.
Cool.
So now we've got this sound looping. Now separately we can learn the fader clicks. Now what I'm doing there is I'm giving myself a chance to learn the fader on its own without my brain being confused by what I'm doing on the jog wheel. So I've learnt two things independently there. I've learnt the baby scratch, and I've learnt rhythmic fader clicks. Okay, and then you can start to bring those together. And it's when you've got that muscle memory of those two hands separately that it's much easier to bring together. And also, you know, as Phil was talking about changing gear in a stick shift or a manual car, it's not. This looks like I'm moving the fader at exactly the same time as the jog wheel, but it's not quite. It's actually 4 movements here. It's fader to open it, then the hand forward, then fader to close it, and then the hand back. And that's how you cut out that reverse stroke. But when you do it fast, you don't really see that little subtlety. But if you do them at exactly the same time, and this is quite tricky because I have to sort of
unlearn it. I'll tell you what, why don't you let me do it? Because I'll tell you what, I'm not going to do it. Yeah, so I can't scratch, and to me, that takes a bit of thinking about to get it right.
And what tends to happen is you start to hear the reverse stroke. Because what you do is you think, right, as soon as I start bringing the deck back, that's when I move the fader, and then you hear the reverse stroke like that. And that's not.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
That's not a cut.
Cool.
So yeah, that's just one example, but like that is much easier to come together if you've learnt the two hands separately.
Okay, so we're covering the 4 things. If you've just joined us, you should have been watching from the beginning. We've covered an awful lot. We're covering the 4 things, the 5 things we've done 4 so far that people always get wrong when they learn to scratch. First one is mimicking what you hear because it just, you know, you think you're doing it right, you haven't got a clue. Second one is thinking your gear is to blame for all this being not quite how it should be.
Third one is poor sounds.
Third one is poor sounds. Fourth one is both hands at the same time, not separating the hands, not understanding what they do differently. Before we move on to the 5th one, and before we move on to telling you about how you can take this further, I just want to go and get lots. I mean, there's so many questions and comments coming in. I want to go and cover some of those off.
Yeah, let's go.
And so we're going to go and have a go at some of those right now. Let's get my comment cam, I like to call it. There's the comment cam. Hello, people.
This is very impressive.
You like this, don't you, Steve? He's not been here recently. There he is. You guys helped me go from an entry-level DJ to developing my skills to the point of playing techno sets for 500 people. Thank you, Digital DJ Tips, says TechEnt.
Cool.
You're very welcome, TechEnt. Ruben says, the problem I have is the control is moving the song without moving the jog wheel, because the song, sometimes I lose the cue point. Moving the song without moving the jog wheel. Does that make sense to you, Steve?
Well, I think it's the trying to keep the scratch sound in position. Which, you know, as your fingers move around on the jog wheel, it can kind of slip sometimes. If that happens, you need to try and keep your hand in that, you know, roughly in that sort of 7 to 9 o'clock position on the jog wheel. But, you know, use the tools of digital gear and use a cue point to help you get back.
There's nothing wrong with using cue points nowadays. All DJs do it.
All the top guys do it. You know, they use, you know, in order to make sure that they know that they're bang on point with their scratch sound, they use a cue point. So if you find that as you're scratching, like you start to lose it and you end up in your hands going round here into the area where I said you shouldn't, and this is where you're finding that the scratch sound has moved to, you can just get your hand back to where you want it, hit the cue point, and then your sound is going to be there. All right.
Nice one, Steve. Thank you very much. Hope that helped you, Ruben. Joey says, DJ Joey Santos says, so glad Steve is a scratch tutor and not Phil. Ain't that the truth? All right then. So Phil, if you can't scratch, I know a great course for you, says Mark. Awesome. So I agree on point 4. Normally do that, and it doesn't work, says Ruben. Oh, we've actually helped you, Ruben, there already. All right then, so I've got quite a long question, says Dave. We can do a long question, can't we, Steve?
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Dave says, I've got quite a long question. I'm new to scratching, fairly new to DVS. Last night I was cutting and my cue point moved on my vinyl from 12 o'clock to about 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
The only thing I noticed different was that sync was on. I only had a simple loop playing on the other deck. Is it common for cue points to drift?
Yeah.
Or was this a mixer or laptop problem?
Okay,
Steve?
so first thing, sync may be causing you a problem, so switch that off because you don't need sync on a scratch sound. In fact, it can be a problem because your DJ software is most likely to analyze the track that your scratch sounds are on, and it's, you know, if it's like this, just a collection of sounds. There is no tempo to that. There's no beat. So if it puts a grid on it and then you click sync and you've got it synced to the other track, first of all, it's probably going to change the pitch or the speed of the sound. And secondly, it's going to be trying to lock you into it. So switch sync, sync off.
Don't need that stuff for scratching for sure.
But what you're describing with DVS, which is the time code, going through the needle, and that's what's controlling the software, it is very, very common for it to drift over time. And I actually recently worked with DJ Rasp, who is a DMC and IDA champion DJ. And in the training that we made with him, which was actually part of the course we're going to talk about, he is always, when he's doing his demonstrations, he's got his hand on the joggle and he's constantly hitting that cue point, like I said to you, so that when he starts to perform, he knows he's ready to go. And he's brought that habit from DVS. He still does it on controllers. He's tapping the cue point like crazy. And that's because of that drift that happens in DVS. And so use cue points. So that's totally fine. What you've described is pretty normal, but use cue points to help you stay locked.
And Dave just wants to make it clear that he's supposed to say he's not new to scratching, not he's new to scratching. So,
cool.
But anyway, Dave, glad that was of help to you. Right, we're going to move on, even though there's so many people we haven't said hello to. It's so busy today. Thank you very much, everyone, for chipping in. We will get back to more of your comments later, but we want to cover the 5th point. So, Steve, let's move on to point number 5 in our 5 things that new scratch DJs always get wrong that hold them back. Tell us about don't set unrealistic goals.
Yeah. So again, our video that we played right at the start was a demonstration of this. What that guy was trying to do was some really, really advanced stuff without having the fundamental basics in place. And of course, that's what we want to do, right? Like for me. When I first heard the transformer scratch, I was blown away by it. And so when I started to learn that transformer, just because of where I was in, actually in the era and the time there, I'd already had a couple of years of practicing baby scratches and chirps and cuts. So I had the fundamentals, and when I started to learn the transformer, it wasn't easy, but I had those fundamentals there. Basically, seeing a DJ doing a transformer scratch and thinking, right, that's the scratch for me, that's where I'm going to start.
Should take about an hour.
You're going to fail. You're going to fail because you, as we've already explained, haven't got those fundamental movements underneath. All right, and unquestionably, people see the really, really flashy stuff and think that's where I want to get to, and they start on that immediately, forgetting that there's a path to that point. Right.
It's really important to push this home. Scratching is a discipline, it's a culture, it's a lifestyle. It's not something you just start. And one thing that's close to our hearts is running. I'm a runner, Steve's a runner. Faye, our production manager, ran the Berlin Marathon. Where else, folks, for an electronic music team member? She ran the Berlin Marathon just on Sunday. So if anyone saw Wonder Woman on the 25th mile on her own sprinting, that was her in the rain, yeah. To be able to run a marathon and finish it in 3:26, you cannot do that a week after taking up running. Faye's been running for years and years and years. She's done marathons where she hasn't made that speed. She's done them in rain and shine and had ones that didn't work and did work, and done different kinds of training to get there. Same with you. Steve's a runner as well. It's something we all tend to do here, bizarrely. So there's a good example of a discipline, like any sport. I mean, not just running, any sport. You can't do the stuff that you need to do all the work to get to in a week or in a day. It takes months and indeed years. And if you don't treat scratching with the discipline that it deserves, you're going to come unstuck straight away. But the good thing, if you're watching this thinking, but I want to do all that stuff, is that actually some of the most iconic scratch DJs, scratch routines are quite simple when you break them down, right, Steve?
Yeah. So there are basic scratches: the baby scratch, the drop, or which is also called the drop, the cut, which is also called the forward, and the chirp scratch, and also the tear. So I'm going to throw a 5th one in there. These are the sort of basic fundamentals, which actually, if you can perform these scratches and perform them well, anybody watching you will say, that guy or girl can scratch, right?
So do you want to show us?
Yeah, okay, so the baby scratch we've already talked about, which is this one. The drop is this. The cut is this. The tear is this. And the chirp is this. Okay. Now, all of those scratches, actually excluding the chirp, there's a really, really famous scratch track or performance. It was actually a hit record by Grandmaster Flash called The Adventures on the Wheels of Steel. And it was basically...
YouTube it afterwards.
It was basically him doing a mashup, a kind of live deck performance, scratching loads of tracks that were really big at the time. It had Blondie on it and Chic and Queen, and it's an amazing performance. But the only scratches he used in that were baby scratches, drops, and cuts. That's pretty much it. And I actually deconstructed that for our course students. And it's brilliant. You know, it's a brilliant scratch performance. And like that is more than enough for you to get started. And so if you set your sights a little, you know, something a little more achievable than running the marathon straight away,
Yeah.
then that will help you to not get frustrated. Because it happens a lot in sports as well. People think, I'm going to go to the gym or I'm going to train for running, and they go, the first time they go, they do something which is way beyond their capabilities. It hurts. The pain of not being able to do it hurts, and guess what? You get frustrated and stop.
And give up, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's number 5, you know, too much too soon. So listen, don't go anywhere because we've got a really exciting announcement for you in a second, and you can basically take this a lot further if you want to, and you're going to want to hear that. But first, I just want to recap the 5 and then just take some of your questions for Steve before we do. So the 5 are, don't just mimic what you hear other people doing thinking, oh, that sounds all right. You probably don't even know if it sounds all right. You haven't reached the level where you can make that call yet. You know, learn some basics about scratching. We've given you a pack. Which is this URL here, djtips.co/scratch. In there, we'll give you the sounds, which we're going to come on to in a second, and we'll also give you a PDF that kind of explains those basics so you can get yourself moving.
Yeah.
So that's number 1. Number 2, Steve.
Don't blame your gear.
Don't blame your gear. It ain't your gear. It's going to be. You're going to have to get very good before your gear is holding you back.
Number 3 is your sounds. Make sure you get the right sounds.
So that
don't just use any old sounds.
That URL will help you get those. Number 4 is don't try and use both hands together. It's separate. It's like a clutch and a gear shift. You've got to learn them both separately.
Yeah.
And number 5.
Don't set unrealistic goals.
Okay, so they're the 5.
And can I just take 30 seconds just to do a little scratch performance, only using those basic scratches?
Can Steve do that, people? Yeah,
So-
you reckon? Go on then.
Like,
We'll let you.
this is just going to be baby scratches, cuts, chirps, tear scratches and drops, which are the fundamental basics.
You've got 30 seconds. I'm timing you.
Oh, okay, maybe a little bit longer then.
Ha,
All right.
go.
That'll do.
Awesome. And that was just the basics.
Yeah.
Done properly.
Yeah.
So look, this is what you can realistically get yourself to in a matter of weeks or months if you apply it, and if you do the things that we say in the order we say, and avoid these 5 areas. So it's exciting if you wanted to learn to scratch. As I say, we've got something really exciting to share with you in a minute, but first I just want to go and get those comments, because again, there's lots of them. We can't possibly reach them all, but we'll do as many as we can. So how long did it take you to start scratching decently from complete clueless to a decent novice scratcher? I think the best thing for you to say here, Steve, is how long it takes your students to get from complete basic to there.
Yeah.
He probably can't remember. It was a long time ago.
No, and also I didn't have a teacher. I didn't have anything to look at, because it was all in the days of recordings, just from cassettes and that kind of thing. So it was a very different type situation. But I have students who joined the Scratch course in our private member launch 3 weeks ago, who are now practicing their combinations of, they're basically doing combos pretty similar to what I was doing there. I'd say maybe not at that tempo, not that fast, but they're already starting to put combinations together of baby scratches, cuts and chirps in just a couple of weeks. And also I actually, in the course, we've got a feature in there. I won't dive too much into the course now, but I might as well mention it. I've got a feature in there where you can actually upload a video of you doing a bit of scratch practice. I'll spot the things that you don't spot, that you need to work on, and give you feedback and basically give you homework to work on for the next video to make sure that you iron out those kind of bad habits and those things.
Okay, so that helps, having someone to, people have said, is it best to get someone to teach me or to learn online and stuff? Well, you want a bit of each really, which is what we're going to tell you about. Anyway, Kelvin says, Dan, you make that look so easy. Mine sounds nothing like that. Well, we think you know what to do about that. Kelvin, now, hopefully. So Lord Collector says, finally, someone not wearing a freaking polo shirt. More to the point, not wearing this freaking polo shirt because I've only got two. Yeah, fair point. We'll take that one.
Usually I am. So
awesome. We love that. Okay, Omar says, what do you think about the speed booster tracks? I.e. a track that starts at 70 BPM and after 5 minutes it's on 140 going up gradually. Is this a good tool as a beginner to use to train scratching on a beat?
As a beginner, I wouldn't say start with a speed booster. So just to be clear, this is a long track. So say it could be a 10-minute long track of a beat that starts at 70 BPM and gradually speeds up. And the idea is that you're doing a pattern, a fixed pattern or a combination of scratches like I was doing there, and you're repeating it, and you're trying to keep up with the beat as the beat speeds up, right? It's a really, really useful tool when you're trying to get faster at improving a technique which you already have nailed at lower tempos.
So it's like a kind of game. How far can I get this time?
Exactly, yeah. So it's used a lot with chirp scratches and with transformer scratches and with flare scratches, some of the more advanced stuff. It's basically a tool to help you learn muscle memory getting fast, right? But as a beginner, I wouldn't recommend it because a minute in, the BPM is going to have reached a point where you're not going to be able to keep up anymore. Then you have to go back to the start. As a beginner, you should actually be in control of those tempos yourself by just changing, having a beat, having it locked for as long as you need to practice it, and then speeding it up a bit and starting to practice again.
Cool. Hope that helped. Keen says, is this going up on YouTube so we can go back and view other sections? Please. Yes, it is. You'll be able to watch the replay. So also, if you joined us late, you'll be able to watch the replay of this as well. Mark says, handy tip, set up a third or fourth deck with a sound pack. If not scratch sounds, you can use loop rolls and beats and things. It's always handy for another layer. Yeah.
Cool, good idea.
Good idea if you've got extra decks there as well. All right then, so we promised you some information here about what to do if you want to take this a bit further. So let's go back to the main camera and we'll talk a little bit about this. So the first thing we did was we showed you the pack. Remember that URL there? You can get the sounds, you can also get a PDF about how to kind of get yourself past the mimicking stage, so at least you understand what you've got to work on and what the path is. But we've got something better for you than that here today. We've actually got this. It's called Scratching for Controller DJs. It launched publicly, an hour ago, Steve?
Yep.
Literally, this is just brand new. It's a completely new DJing scratch training course from Digital DJ Tips for taking you from absolute beginner. You don't even have to be a DJ, never mind a scratch DJ, to doing the stuff that Steve has just shown you.
Yeah.
It's something that we're very proud of. We've been teaching this for, how many years have we been teaching this now for, Steve? 6.
Yep.
But this is the first time we've remade the whole, whole thing from bottom up. So this is big, this is all in 4K, it's all using modern gear, modern sounds, modern music. We've got modern scratch DJs in there who won competitions recently, helping to train and being in there with Steve. It's very, very special and we're very proud of it, and we've literally just pushed the button on it.
Yeah.
So
some of the stuff that I've talked to you about here in terms of the training tools and the methodology, obviously all of that is in there. It also includes everything that you need to get your gear set up. And also there's in the beginning get started module, there's a lot of mindset stuff as well, because I need to, one of the important things before you embark on this is getting yourself out of that frame of mind that I can't do this is too difficult. So we get you kind of, technically ready and mentally ready, and then we move into learning the scratch techniques. And there are loads of new features that I've put in, which are tools to make sure that you're going to learn it. The one I'm most excited about is the Follow Your Tutor practice demos. So basically they are separate videos of each individual scratch technique where I actually do the technique for say a bar or 2 bars or however long the pattern is, and then there's a gap where the beat carries on, and that's your chance to basically do it over the top and try and copy it. There are video versions of these and also audio versions of these that you can put in your DJ software and loop. And also every single one of these lessons and videos has got comments underneath where I help, and as I've already said, I feed back to everybody. I'm having an absolute blast in there with the students at the moment.
Just to make it clear, because Digital DJ Tips is a private community, we've already beta tested this with our community. They're loving it. This is public. This is going out to the world now. It's had the stamp of approval from the community, and now it's out there as of today. So yeah, you are. It's hard to get him online in the morning because he's too busy in there scratching away with people. It's called the all-new Scratching for Controller DJs. We're very proud of it, and if you want to take this further and you've enjoyed what Steve's been showing you today, it's hundreds and hundreds of lessons. Steve and his carefully chosen Scratch friends showing you how all this works. There is your link. djtips.co/scratch course. This is going to be underneath the video as well, so that you can go there and find out all about this. And the reason you need to do this now is that just for this launch week there is a very special offer which you will learn all about when you go there and look at the course. Do you know what?
The page, I
think we're done there. I just want to go and have one quick last look at the comments coming in and just do a few final shout outs to people. But if you're watching this at work on your phone, you can go now. You've got everything you need. Meanwhile, let's just go and get some final comments from people here. So DJ Dash, do you train your weak hand with certain scratch exercises, or does it come naturally with practice, Steve?
So whichever hand it is that you're training with, if it's weak on the techniques that you're learning, then you're just going to need to put a few more hours in of practice to get that muscle memory. Some people do sort of struggle with like the wrist or the fingers getting a bit sore, maybe that your practice sessions are a bit too long in that case, and you should like basically make them shorter and do them more often. But yeah, just persevere. It comes with time.
Okay, cool. Listen, I've just noticed how many people have asked some really good questions here. Cool. Rather than try and answer them all in a rush now, we will get to your questions in the comments. If you're on YouTube or Facebook or on the Global DJ Network, we'll get to your questions underneath as soon as we can after this video stops. It might take us a day because there are hundreds and hundreds of them, but we will answer every single one of you individually. So if you've asked a question and it hasn't been answered, don't worry. We're not going to ignore that by not doing it live. Cool. It's going to happen. This is what you want though. djtips.co/scratch course. That's where you can find out more about this training course that's just gone live with a special offer. So that's it. That's it for an extended Tuesday Tips Live from the Digital DJ Tips studio. Thank you to Steve for coming all the way from another country, never mind round the corner, to be here in Gibraltar with us.
It's been great fun.
Well, why don't you just scratch them out, Steve, while I wander over there and hit the end button. That was actually but hey, it's pretty good, isn't it? Go on, Steve, over to you, mate.
Yeah, you've just upstaged me now.